Hi everybody. In this video I'm going to show you how to get started using Postgres in JavaScript. So let's get started. So in this directory I've created pod1. I just have two files, billboard.sql and 1.js. And the first thing I'm going to do is initialize it with npm, so init. And as we've done before, let me kind of make this a little bigger just so people can see it nicer. If I was really creating a project, I would be careful and put in correct information. But since this is a demo, I'm just kind of putzing around. I'm just going to tab through this and ignore it. So I'm zipping through all these. My author, I'm not going to type in my name, and it looks fine. Yes. And before I explain that part, let me add the new library that's going to help us connect Postgres to JavaScript. And that library, that connector, that adapter is called PG. So I'm going to do an npm install save PG. Okay, so what just happened here is two things. So npm init creates a file called package.json. When I install a library, it adds that information to this directory called node_module. So if I take a look at node modules, you'll see that there's an awful lot of stuff, and it's all, in this case, related to, I've only installed one module, so it's all related to the Postgres module. So those are where the files are. Let's take a look at what happens in package.json. So here I'm in a Sublime editor. It's an editor I really like to use. It's one of my favorite editors. It's on Mac, Windows, and Ubuntu. It's a product there's a free version, and the only limitation of the free version is you get a pop-up saying this is a free version. Not a big deal in my brain. But I liked it so much that I thought it was worth the I wanted to give some money to the developer, and I bought it. I don't remember what it was. It wasn't that much, but you can use it for free without a problem. I would recommend it. I kind of like this. But if you're a Vi user, Vim, whatever you like to use, go for it. All right, so Sublime Edit. All right, and I said I would look at package.json. So here's all the stuff that I just tabbed through. So that's not that interesting. I just tabbed through all this stuff. Here's what I think is kind of the interesting part. So it's telling, this dependencies section is telling what libraries I installed. Right now I just installed PG, the Postgres library. But I could have installed React, a bunch of others, and this package.json will keep a list of everything I installed. That's what the ---- save does. So this is really cool and helpful. So I don't have to remember what were the libraries I installed. And even better is if I give my program to another person, and that program also can, among all the files, we also get this package.json file. That person can just do npm install, and it'll download all these libraries that we need. So it's really a kind of a convenience feature. It's kind of a distraction from what we're doing, but I just wanted to play, it's really the correct way of doing stuff. All right, so the Billboard SQL file is one we've already seen. I create this database Billboard. In it is this table called Hot 100, and each entry, the columns are this rank, title, and artist. So here's an example. Number 1 is this tune, number 2 is this tune, number 4 is That's What I Like by Bruno Mars, and so on. So I have 9 of them, probably should be called Hot 9. I got tired of typing. I certainly wasn't going to do all 100, but that kind of gives us a start in looking at stuff. And I've also created this table users that has a username and a password. So that's what, and there I've added a few. This is not a complete, I should point out that in a later video I'll tell you how to do it correctly. I'm just trying to simplify stuff at the moment by doing this. So this is not an example of the correct way of doing passwords. Keep that in mind and look for that upcoming video. All right, so that's what I have there. And then I have this 1.js, which we've done before. And let me explain this 1.js a little bit. So the first line is this, I'm grabbing from this require PG, so it's requiring this library that we installed, PG, and it's grabbing this pool constructor for this or class. It's a constructor for pool type objects. And let me explain what pool is. So it's really a connection pool, a pool of database connections. And here's what happens when our application, our web application, is interacting with a database server. So the first step it does is we need to make a connection to the database. So we open a connection to the database server, and then we make our query, and then or multiple queries, and then we close that connection. And as you can imagine, there's some overhead involved in opening a connection and closing that connection. The queries are fairly fast, but every time we make a query, we open a connection, close the connection. Not bad if we don't have much of, our application doesn't do much, but if we're Amazon and people are constant, hundreds of thousands of people are searching for products, and each search involves querying the database, we're opening a connection and closing a connection. So a better way of doing it is having a pool of open connections. So we're going to open a bunch of connections initially, and then when there's a request from, we need to search for something, some user wants some information from our database, we grab one of those open connections from the pool, use it. When we're done with it, we're just going to put that open connection back in the pool. So this reduces the overhead associated with connecting to the database. So it's a good thing, especially as our program grows, to be using this pool object. One person did kind of a study with a very small number of queries. So here's this. Let me scroll up here. Effective connection pooling on Node.js performance. And he just did, I think it was 5 queries he made. And he determined the difference was, let me scroll over here. So it was 8 seconds versus 2 seconds. So his querying went down from, quite a bit, for 1/4 the time when you're using these pools. So that's what the pool is. So think of it as a pool of open connections that my program can use when it needs to make queries. And here so that's line 1. Line 9 here is I'm creating a new pool object with the argument of config. Config is a variable here. It's a JSON object that has all the information we need to be able to connect to a database. First we say, well, where is this database we're connecting to? It's on our local machine, localhost. It could be at some other place. We'd give it an IP address, 92.63. whatever. But in our case, again, it's running locally. The user I created in a previous video, Music Manager, I gave it a password. This user has very specific constraints that it can only access tables in this database, Billboard. So that's the information that I need. Which database should I connect to? What database server am I connecting to? And what user and password am I connecting as? So that's all from here to here. This async function we've seen before, so it's an asynchronous function, meaning that other things can run at the same time. I call it get hits. So here I'm waiting for this query, select splat from a hot 100. So I'm trying to get all the entries from this table, and then we're awaiting on it. And then after we actually get a result, so remember this is returning a promise, meaning sometime in the future there's going to be a value here. I wait for that value, and now I'm going to print the rows part of that value. So let's see that working. Let me clear my terminal here. And so what I have is Node on the Mac. The version I'm using is 8.1.3. And so Node 1.js. And I get all that information from that table. So that's cool. That's when everything goes right. And that's kind of the basics of how we're connecting to the database, Postgres database server, using this PG adapter. Let's see what happens when something goes wrong. And the one simple thing, I'll just create or try to reference a table that I know doesn't exist. Okay, and let me run that. And I get relation hots 100 doesn't exist. But I get this other problem, unhandled promise rejection warning. So the promise was rejected, and you can read all this here, but basically it says, hey, you didn't handle an error, and you really need to be handling errors. So there's something dodgy with my code in addition to the original error, which that table didn't even exist. So let me show you how to get rid of this and how we handle errors dealing with promises. And it's a way we probably already know. So I'm going to enclose this in a try block. that over so it looks pretty. I'm going to catch that error if there is an error, and I'll just log that error. Let me print out my error just so we can see what's printing where. Oop. All right, so let me go with that. So here I just enclose things in a try and catch block. And now let me run that. This prints a lot more. Let me just zoom up a little bit. Notice that we don't get that, hey, you screwed up on handling rejection of promises, so that's good. My error gets printed, which is where I was catching it, and then all the rest of this is that actual error. So it's what I intended to print. So this here is the correct format for when we're waiting on a promise. We should probably use this, not probably, we should use this try and catch block. So this is so far the basic structure that we're using. Next up, I'll present more problems or solutions to them. Thanks. Bye.